Hey everybody, we're live here at the Global Party, healing from the inside out.
Hello.
Hello.
Hello, everybody.
So we're live all the way to Costa Rica, 1820, aren't you, Emiliano?
Yeah.
Yes, he is. There you go. It's a great coffee. So we have Victor, we have Natsuko and Emiliano. They're all in Costa Rica at the moment. Am I correct saying you're all under 30?
I'm 30.
Years old.
So two are 30, and then Emiliano's the younger one, slightly.
29, yeah. Man, almost 30, yeah.
Almost 30. So this is whatever I don't like to label any generation, but I feel that the three of you, because of everything you've done and gone through, you are a very good representation from a different perspective than some of us older people. So
Yeah.
I could be wrong. It could just be the illusion of my ageism, Emiliano.
Yeah.
But I'm looking forward to hearing what you're experiencing right now, because I was just there and it was all peaceful kumbaya, and I felt like this American gentleman came along when I was down there, and I had to say to him, actually, I think you were the virus, because we were peace, calm, tranquility, and then he came to take us out of our ignorant bliss. And
Yeah.
I noticed that I started to go like, oh, let's Google, what do I need to do? What's going on? How do I go back? And all that stuff. So how has it been occurring for you guys?
How is it going here?
Yeah,
Yeah.
for you.
For me,
Ladies first.
first of all, we are living in a very rural area of Costa Rica. So I personally doesn't feel that much of panicking going on around here. I live pretty much peaceful, Only thing that I really care is the senor living in front of a house. He's like 80, how much is he?
Like 89.
89 years old. So I'm caring about people like around me who is like more aged persons. Try not to spread as much as possible, something like that. But since we've been living pretty much simple life for almost 2 years, so I don't feel personally that much of things going on. We don't know how you guys.
Yeah, for me, it was interesting because I know about the progression of COVID-19 since maybe a month ago, but it was not because of what was happening in our country. It was because I had a schedule to US now in April. And well, it was an event that was going on. It was going to happen. And little by little, we started to receive emails like just be aware of the situation, be aware if there is if it's necessary to stay home and all that. So I started to realize, okay, something is going on and it is becoming serious. Also, I have a brother in the United States, and uh, the alarm there started probably a week before here. So when it started here, I was already kind of like in understanding that it was something serious and big going on in the world. Uh, it was interesting for me because I had this whole expectation about my next step in life, that it was going to be this trip to US, and it was related to my, let's say, field of expertise. And so it was like my next, uh, yeah, like my next new thing, my next big thing. And like little by little, I really needed to start to let go of, like this is not what I expected. And for me, it was strange because I was really the whole event and me going to US. It was like me following footprints and following the signs and following my intuition. That usually, I don't know, in my life, it's rare when it fails because it's like, wow, I didn't understand the signs then. But then I realized, like, not even that, it's like this is really about letting go of the whole individual mind. Like, yeah, I was prepared for that, but you know what? That was not what it was going to happen. So it was weird. It is still weird for me. Um, it is one of the first times in my life that I experienced something that is so collective. In Costa Rica, we don't have wars, we don't have like international conflicts, so we usually see things from the news, and that's it. But this time, it's something that really involves me and everybody around me. So it is interesting. Like, I mean, besides, of course, the that I feel, of course, sometimes sensitive for other people, especially in countries that are very affected. Um, but it is interesting because it is like I feel like the whole world is in a spiritual retreat right now.
Yeah.
And for me and Natsuko, I was telling Natsuko yesterday, like it's interesting because the way we have lived for the last 3 to 4 years, uh, for me, it's like, wow, this really seems like when we took that step out of the city, that it was about living with less and living with a lot less narrative and with a lot less expectation. But now it's just collective, and now it's not only in my mind; it's just everywhere, and it is new, it is fresh, it is. I am aware that this is probably the most important event ever in mankind, at least in the last 100 years or so. So I never thought, like, because I also see this as the old world kind of collapsing, and it's something I kind of like thought that it was going to happen, but I never imagined that I was going to experience it.
Mm.
So yeah, that's my I want Victor to say.
It's interesting what Emiliano says about thinking that he knew it was going to happen. Same in my case. I kind of felt like at some point something collective at a global level like this was going to happen. Um, I've been hearing because I'm very interested in the financial world, and for the last couple of years I've been hearing about the economy collapsing again. But I was meditating about it yesterday, and it came from the less imaginable way that I have ever thought, like a virus. I never thought that it could be from a virus originated in China. And yeah, the fact that it's reaching us here right now, it's very shocking. For me, yeah, I've been living a simple life as Emiliano and Natsuko. I haven't actually felt like a lot of changes in my life because I work from home and I spend my whole day at home. But yeah, I see it around. I see a lot of people with a lot of chaos, mental chaos, but when you go outside, it's so peaceful. So it's this contrast, you know. Internally, people is living in chaos, but at least here, and I know that in a lot of places that people can't go outside. Yeah, you see a lot of peace and silence, a lot of silence. I mean, yesterday in the afternoon, I just sat outside and there were almost no cars, and it felt like 1 a.m. in the morning, all the afternoon, all the evening, and I was like, wow. I mean, how is this happening, and how cool would it be if this would be like this all the time? um, yeah, and at least in my family, I have seen that it's triggering a lot of things. Thinking about others, thinking about the elders in my family. Not as much as thinking about us because I was never worried about me getting the virus, because I know we have a strong health system, so I was not worried. And I was at the beginning, I was like, okay, if I get it, I'm not gonna worry. I would be safe. But then you start thinking about the other people that at a risk, the elders or people with certain illness. And yeah, it's also triggering that, that's solidarity in a lot of people is being forced in a way, by the external. But I think, yeah, it was the time. It was the time for it to happen. Of course, there is a purpose and many purposes. Uh, and I've been trying to see that, observing it from the outside, seeing the chaos, seeing the peace, seeing what's going on, but from the outside. I'm not entering the chaos or whatever. I'm just trying to experience this, what's going on, reflecting on it, and trying to bring that perspective to the people around. Because it's a great opportunity, honestly. It's just like I was saying, it's like the biggest opportunity, I think, at a human level, collective level, to see things differently and change and whatever has to be changed. Yeah.
I already start to seeing the change in Costa Rica. Like, for example, in this morning, there was a car inside our house and we don't know who they are. And one lady asked us like, oh, do you want us to bring something from the shop? So to avoid less contact. So even like a neighbors or somebody who don't know, like stranger, they kind of being very generous and focusing on, instead of like benefits or profit, they really working from the generosity part, like what benefits everybody. Or for example, Yoga Mandir, I don't know, that's one of the biggest yoga studio in Costa Rica, I think, from San Jose. They already start like broadcasting their class for free for everybody. That was really quick answer for this situation of the crisis, but thinking about like what we can do, benefits everybody else. And today here, there is no Karen Ramirez. There is no Karen here, but I know that Karen going to broadcast her yoga class on Monday. From
she's
6 p.m.
on Monday. That's another thing. I've seen that creativity. It has triggered a lot of creativity, different ways of doing things using technology. Even a lot of people from companies working from home, and I think it's like a huge test, to actually see, what in reality means working from home and how many benefits it could bring to the traffic and pollution and all of this. So people is finding new ways of interacting, and I think that's great. It's another great benefit of all this. Yeah.
You know what other great benefit is you mentioned yoga, and I discovered Karen. Karen
She is.
She's on the screen, Karen, but you are live with us now. But your microphone is muted. I will unmute you. Okay.
Oh, that's nice.
No, where'd you go? Okay. So, can you hear us, Karen? Can you hear us?
Hello.
We're not quite getting you. Are you guys hearing her?
Yeah.
No.
Little. It's very low.
A little. So you're still gonna have to. So while you're looking at that, Karen, for a second, I found it interesting that you both were saying how you felt like something had to happen, right? That this collective consciousness had to shift, and I feel like there are a lot of us that kind of felt like it had to happen because we were just way off balance. But nobody imagined that it could be like this, right? Yeah. In a short period of time, everything has just come to a halt from an economic standpoint. And
it was explosive. Yeah.
yeah, it was like, whoa. So health is really the wealth, because I've realized I've been having some conversations with a few people that are like, millionaires, and their money isn't going to save them, right? Someone else was saying, doesn't matter what you got, because right now it's about what you have in here. And the three of you have done that work, the four of you, and you're living, a more of a minimalist life, a simple life, which is how we even kicked off this with Reiki, shaman Reiki. I mean, she's very minimalist in the Netherlands. I mean, she's been living that whole experience. So for a lot of us that have been more insular and working from home or just quieting down, it really isn't that big of a shift in our daily routine. But the ones that have been on the treadmill or the conveyor belt that have had to be in this, they're the ones that now get to relax and take a break.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right? And through that process, I feel hearts are opening and people are becoming more connected to say, like you said, do you need anything? Can I help you? So even though there might be people that have hoarded toilet paper, I feel like one day someone will knock on their door and say, do you have any toilet paper?
Yeah.
And they'll go, guess what? Yeah, I do. But how are you working now, Karen? Can you hear us?
Yeah, I can hear, but I'm a little bit lost because I don't know exactly what the meeting for.
So you're at the global party, Karen, and we're talking about the effects of this global transformation. And I have another young gentleman that you guys might be surprised to see that has just popped up. And Evan is joining you.
Oh my God.
You have this younger generation, so I'm going to bounce off, but we just want to hear your thoughts, Karen, about what's going on. If you want to share, how are you feeling this transition? Are you feeling positive and optimistic about what's going on? And are you feeling, we're looking for all the good things, because it's
Yeah, I hear you. Well, from my side, actually, this is for me like an opportunity to develop some ideas that I was working on, like teaching online and building my website. So it just gives me some time to work on those projects. And at the same time, I'm happy that everything needs to stop for a while. I think we needed this, and it's happening. And at the end, this will bring so much consciousness, so much awareness to the world in many, many areas. So for me, it's like good news. Perhaps I don't have a job, and I don't know when I'm going to be able to work again. But I'm supported by my boyfriend, and at the same time, me and my siblings are supporting my mom and so on. So I'm just kind of sad for the people that really have no income and no one to support them in this situation. But I think everybody is gonna make it some way or another. Basically, we just need to eat, right? That's all we need right now. So whatever we can we can share with others, food or whatever, it will be just enough.
Toilet paper.
Toilet paper. I think people is freaking out, and I don't think that's the case. Like, I just came back from doing some grocery shopping and fruits and vegetables and meat, and the guy said, like, a guy before you came and they are selling these 500 grams of ground beef, and he said a guy before you, he came and he took 15 because he said, maybe if we run out of meat, he just wants to keep 15 at home. And I'm like, what? It's like, and the guy said, we have so much meat in storage that it's not going to run out, but people think they're going to run out of food. So I can see the ignorance of people, right? And the fear and the lack of trust in this process. So I think it's time to kind of share with the people that it's not that way, that we need to build that trust and that self-confidence and believe that everything is going to be okay. So yeah, that's my thoughts.
I think, as Colin said, it's really time for like knowing what's our basic need. Like, if we think about it, if we have 1 pack of rice and 1 pack of beans, we can make gallo pinto for 1 week, like seriously, honestly. And to know that, it's like, it's so basic, so we forgot, like, you know. But that's really important to know how much food we eat a day, how much product we, even the toilet paper, sometimes we don't think, so we use like so much, like and like smallest things that we usually don't pay attention. Maybe it's time for us to really pay attention how much we use and how much we appreciate it.
Yeah, I think that another thing that comes very handy right now for me is trust. That I've been working on this for many years, and you too, guys. But for people that is not, has no experience on that, that's the kind of people that buys all the toilet paper and whatever. But you are more aware, and you buy whatever you need, and you say, okay, I know that in a week, food is gonna come from somewhere, or whatever I need. But we have a lot of practice on trust, on trusting. And I think that I become more aware of that these days. Like, I have acknowledged that, all these years of work on trusting, whatever is coming, trusting the universe, it's paying off in times like this. And I feel compassion towards all these people that it's really having no clue about this, and it's just acting in a chaotic way. Yeah.
What about you, Evan? How are you doing with all this?
Are you a very cute cat?
Oh yeah. This cat's named Yenny.
Yenny?
Yeah. She'll come up and she's very demanding for affection. She'll stay with me for 3 hours, and I'll just be petting her, and she'll just be licking me for half the time. So that's been helpful. And yeah, I'm in the suburbs of New Jersey. And I'm sure there's been a lot of anxiety under the surface. I notice people around here are not very expressive. So I can't say what their emotional state is exactly. But honestly, when I walk around outside and I see people seem very liberated and more relaxed and open. And that's a bit different, because usually in this area people are more closed off and not really socializing.
Yeah.
But
no distractions, not many distractions at this moment.
Can I just ask a question here? So, Evan, would you say the area you're in is more upscale?
It's upper middle class.
So it's more typically, so this is a great example. So it's more this churning of the machine, go to work stuff, because it's upper middle class.
People are just on the grind mode.
So now they're having a break and they're more relaxed, and you're noticing they're more chill because they're like, holy moly, I finally get a break and I don't have to make up an excuse why I can't go to work, and it's not a vacation.
Yeah, honestly, I was feeling like that too, because I have a job. I got a job at a local salad bar, and I work 20 to 25 hours a week, which is half of what most people work. And even with that kind of job, where it's just you have to keep working for a certain amount of hours and doing tasks, and while you're there, you need to be doing things to be someone they're paying, so they're paying you, and that's your function. So you're fulfilling a function. And even that can be exhausting. Like I'll come back home after that and just lay in bed for like 5 hours just to recoup. So like this is a bit of a blessing for me because like it's giving me time just to reflect on like what direction's my life going. Like if I have to like stand even this level of the conveyor belt to sustain myself. And I've been avoiding having a job for a while. And perhaps this will shift the way like the whole collective operates, because it's really, yes, like I have a role in that I'm agreeing to have a job in this society and to make money and to buy things and to participate in that capitalist system. But at the same time, if like everyone in these suburbs takes a collective breath and like looks around and like starts to feel what's happening inside of themselves and the level of stress that you have to work in to like just maintain in the system, I feel like there's more potential for creative solutions and more like community-based working together rather than this really linear, like go to work, make money, and then go use your money to buy things, and then go and then use that money to sedate yourself even to like get through whatever this whole man-made system is that we've created. It's really just a creation. It's nothing more. It's like we've created this and we think it's the way reality is, but it's really just something we've created and we continue to agree to and made extremely difficult to operate outside the bounds of.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, for me, it's like I was telling. Well, this is kind of like something that I needed to like to say. Okay, am I ready to admit this? But deep down, I feel like there is some sense of like victory. Like it is like God against the ego victory, something like that. Because yeah, I understand. Like it sounds a little bit rough to say because considering how many people is being affected by it. But if I focus personally, I say, well, the world that it seems to have stopped right now, that my whole life it had a continuity until what 2 weeks ago. Uh, I never ever made sense of it. Like I tried and I found even ways to, let's say, pretend a little bit less, a little bit less than in comparison with a lot of people. Like, yeah, I say, yeah, well, if I need to have a job, then I would do this. But deep down, it was not like a fully authentic thing to do. And so when that happened, it was like, well, now what? Like right now, even having a job like a salary right now, it would be a problem because I would be fully worried about what would I use my money for. I would use it only for being in the house. That doesn't sound like something that I would enjoy a lot. And then it's like how much value like money as we used to think of it will have when this happens. It's like those questions, like maybe this is a topic that nobody's like openly discussing. I mean in the news and stuff or TV, because I don't know, maybe it will bring too much chaos to people. Like, to on top of the disease, let's start to think about my economy and how this will affect my near future. But this is of course something that at some point we need to think about, like what are the chances that we come back to normal? Let's say, what are the chances that things go back to be the same? I mean, they're very low. And at the same time, it's like I'm very aware that this is just the beginning of some uncomfortable time for humanity. Like when the disease starts to be like normalized, let's say, well, there will come the time for other things to show up. Like, okay, now what? Now we lost all of this time of production, and now we lost all of this money coming from flights and tourism and things like that. like for me it's amazing just to think about how much airlines could be losing right now. It's like billions of dollars. And it's like I have a friend that he used to be a pilot, and well, Victor was related with that world too. And I was thinking of you guys, like saying, wow, like these people made the right choice at the right time. Because imagine you being in that situation right now, like where you most probably would be just in this anxiety of, will I be fired or will I continue with my
Yeah,
job?
uncertainty. Yeah, I have a few friends that work at an airline, and it's probably going to go bankrupt unless the Argentina nationalized this airline. So yeah, a lot of uncertainty for many people. Yeah. Um,
But at the same time, I think it also brought an opportunity for many people. For example, people that just start up the business online, or for example, these old small companies that came into the country like Rappi and Pato, like all the delivery system. Now they have full-time jobs, and now they might even have to hire people to work from them because now people don't want to leave the house. So now online shopping and home delivery and supermarkets, restaurants are still selling food for people. So at the same time, some people get
for
benefits out of
sure.
things
Yeah.
like this. The pharmaceuticals, they have to sell a lot of medicine, inclusive the natural shops, like macrobiotics and all of that. They also have to sell a lot because people care more about their health now than ever. For example, the yoga classes, now everybody's offering free yoga classes. And before, you have to pay a lot of money to enter a yoga studio in Costa Rica and have unlimited classes. And now you can have the same benefit almost for free online. So people, for example, I have some friends that they stopped doing yoga because they didn't have the money for it, and now they're super happy because there are many classes online. There are tons of meditations online. There are singers offering concerts online for free.
Mhm.
So, at the same time, it actually creates opportunity for people that didn't have this before. So
Mm.
I am very happy and grateful for that.
Yeah. Yeah. Everything is like polarizing. I think that, and I think it would continue that way. Some people will go uh, on the way of okay, finding a new life, a new balance, and some people is going to go the other extreme. I think not the whole humanity will move together, but I think a lot of people will change their lives. Yeah, we'll see. I'm very excited in seeing what's coming next. But
Yeah.
it's like the start of a journey. I think it's like the beginning of a long journey for humanity, and we'll see what happens.
Yeah, that's how I see it. I see this as a shift in the evolution terms, almost like in evolution time frames too. I mean, this is huge. I mean, this is not something that happens on a Sunday, and then Monday you go to classes. I mean, this is something that it will be on history books if there is still school.
Yeah.
In history books in 100 years or 200 years, like that shift in history where mankind needed
Yeah, I'm on
to
the phone.
change like most of their perspective. So I'm
Yeah, it's
aware of
like
that, and that makes me curious, but at the same time, I know that I'm in a privileged spot. This. So in like when, for example, I have a friend in one of the countries that is very affected, and she has been saying, for me this time is mostly to grieve. It's like, and I say, well, I think that's important too. It's not like we need to force on people that this is like a celebration of anything, because for me and for Natsuko and maybe for all of us right here, it's like, yeah, we have been living in isolation for a while. We have living in a very simple way for a while, and so we don't feel this shift, personal shift. But for a lot of people, this is not like that. And I would say I don't know if it's most of the people, but it is quite big amount of people that they had a huge emotional and economic investment in the world that it's right now in pause. So that's something to consider too. Is like, yeah, that's probably not the world that I live in since a while, but I understand and I feel compassion, and I feel, for example, from here that we can see the city lights. The other day I was in Natsuko, like it makes me feel a lot of compassion to think that in each one of those little lights there is somebody scared, and that's probably one of the first times I feel compassion in such a wide way, like in such an unconditional way. Like I
Yeah.
don't know, it's like I think it's very related when like somebody close of you dies or there is a breakup or something that you really start to consider all the things that you didn't like about that person, and then you say, "Wow, I wish I was more aware in that time."
Hmm. Yeah.
Well, I know
And
one of the things I just want to bring up, because I know all your sort of history here, but the viewers don't. And you guys have done your so-called inner work, right? You have looked at things, made transitions, made changes because you confronted what everybody's actually sort of forcibly confronted right now. Am I correct in saying that?
Yeah, I think so.
mhm. Yeah.
And so, we were talking about this earlier, is the fact that a lot of those people aren't going to go, people that have come to say, oh, you think they could do the journey. I remember you saying that, Emiliano, on your first interview. Somebody who you think could get help by doing the journey, they weren't the one that was going to take the journey. And there's many, many people we go, you could benefit if you went to a mindfulness retreat, or you would do this. And they were like, no, I'm fine.
Mhm.
And in this situation, this is like, for me, my perspective is like it's a forced meditation, mindfulness retreat, wellness retreat, whatever, because they're living in their own home and they're forced to deal with their own habits and then the change of habits. Because if I was just home on my own, and then my husband, which is some of them, has came to work, from home, then you've got to adjust to that. If the kids are home, the college students are coming back, you're confronted. And in a sense, that's the work that you did, all the four of you. You had to confront your shadow to get free. And can you see that this is like a global confrontation of their shadow?
Yeah, yeah,
Mhm.
yeah, yeah.
Hmm.
And
100%. Yeah.
it has at the same time it has the quality of peace or potential peace, but at the same time it has the whole potential to be very uncomfortable right now, because it's facing something, and it's not facing something small, like, yeah, I broke up with my girlfriend or something. It's facing the implications of that the world that you knew suddenly maybe it won't exist anymore, and that's pretty big.
So if each of you had to rate it on a scale of 1 to 10, 1 being like you think the world is going exactly back to the way it was, and 10 being that it's going to be completely transformed, where are you feeling you would rate that at this point today? Where are you feeling? Victor?
10 in the long, long, long term. I don't know, 1,000 years, but it might be the beginning. So we might be at 1, 2, but it's the beginning. It's like when we start, or in my case, and I know it's your case too, guys. When you started your inner journey, there were some triggers that made us begin the journey.
Mm.
I think it's just a global trigger, and it's probably the first major trigger for many people. So it's just the beginning of a long journey of transformation that would take many years. Some went back to normal. Other people obviously won. But yeah, I think globally we'll keep moving towards a full transformation. But yeah, it will take time. Yeah.
Karen?
Yeah, well, I think when every one of us started the journey, we kind of hit the bottom at some area in our lives, right? That's why we started this searching, right? So now a lot of people are forced to hit the bottom. Like I have a friend that she told me, I've never been in the house for so long, and I think I'm gonna kill my boyfriend. and and I don't know what I'm going to do because I'm not used to be at home, and this is just literally forcing me to to see myself and confront myself and be tolerant and so many things that she's always avoiding because people is avoiding to see the reality and to see themselves. So for me, this will be a huge transformation towards the awakening of humanity. I don't know in what level, but yes, I think.
Yeah.
So I'm just going to Evan now. Scale of 1 to 10.
I see it's like 4 or 5. Like people in their hearts will think things could change and they'll see a potential. And I feel like things will like rubber band back. People rubber band back in the same jobs, habits, patterns. I may even rubber band back into the same job and be there for indeterminate more time to learn the lesson of agreeing to capitalism, I guess.
Oh, boy.
But
That's an interesting point, though, right? So maybe what we're perceiving is going to happen is really still a reflection of where we're at.
Yeah.
yeah.
But Evan made a good point. It might be an opportunity for people to see that there's potential for a change. That's great. Many people who had never seen that, they're seeing the many good things that can come out of this, and yeah, they might go back to their old lives, but yeah, they have seen the potential, and I think that's just like a seed put there. Yeah.
Okay, and so that leaves me to the Natsuko Emiliano. What about you guys?
I would say like 7 in the same reason, whatever say, the rubber band effect. Because human is always like that. They really want to go back to the same like a cognitive form, to go back to the same pattern. And I already experienced when Japan had a big earthquake back then. The moment people really started to turn off the light, just eliminate all the unnecessary lights from the city. And that was pretty good. We realized, oh, yeah, that's true. Like it's unnecessary. But after a year, like after 6 months, like things going back again, crisis has been going down, then people go back to the same cycle. So for me, Victor say that this is a great chance for a change or opportunity to change. But what does that makes the opportunity to be really effective is our conscious effort to not to taken away by that elastic effect.
Yeah.
And that's really seriously like each one of us, because I think sooner or later, economic coming back as always. It happened so many times, World War II, a big bankruptcy, it happened all the time, but it's always come back and we going back like elastic. So maybe this is a time for really like individual to not fighting, but aware of that elastic band effect, and choose different. Just don't going back. Try to care about your sustainability and your nurturing yourself, nurturing your humanity, instead of, as everyone say, going back to lying, like living that type of life you really don't feel taste for it. So for me, that's kind of, so 7, I think, and it really can be 5 or 8, depends on each individual how they react to it. For me, yeah, something like that.
I kind of like agree with Victor that I think in the long term it will be like a 10. But I think actually this is a very good analogy, like what we're living now with all this quarantine thing, like being in the house and waking up and seeing the news and say, okay, it's the same, you know, one more day and one more day. And I think that's a very good metaphor, I would say, of maybe how this will work. You know, it's like we really need to learn to measure time in a different way. You know, it's not anymore like, I guess tomorrow I can watch football again. That's not going to happen. That's not happening right now. Um, and I really need to start to think, you know, in this almost like if I was a being that was going to live 3,000 years, you know, and not 80 or 90. You know, in 90 years, what could happen with all this is maybe, you know, it will still be like a 3 or a 4. And so I think we really need to learn to measure time, you know, more like considering, okay, it's not only my life here, you know, it will be the life of people 1,000 years from now. It will be the life from, you know, if I had kids or grandsons, you know, it would be the life of them. For us, it would be, I think, and this is something that makes me at the same time curious and say, oh my God, you know, we have a lot of work, because I think we are in the generation that will live the first stages of this shift. And I think it will take a while for us to know, like, where can we move, you know, and what directions we can take, and what is the north of all this. You know, right now it's very fresh, and we are in this abstraction. We are in like this, I would consider it like a void, you know, like a simulation of what it would be to be fully awake, you know, from the world, and the world just stopped, you know, and it just, there's nothing in the world that means anything today. The only thing that means something is, let's please get out of this, you know. And so, yeah, I think, and the whole metaphor of being in the house is, I hope a lot of people don't see it as being in the house physically, you know, in the space of your home. It's really entering to yourself. You know, this is what we are. You know, I really like to believe, you know, this is maybe my own game, my own mind game, but I really like to believe that God sends us like this poem, you know, and we need to learn to interpret the signs. They are not literal, never. And so this entering to your house is just an analogy, you know, it's like
What it is.
yeah, it is a symbol
And
of
it's like a saying. It's like a saying at the family house when you're doing the journey. You know,
yeah, exactly.
except that
It is a way of
people,
saying,
yeah,
you know, don't go outside. It's like saying stop looking outside in a way.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think we need to be prepared, because I think even for me that, you know, I have been, or for us that we have taken some, let's say, atypical steps in our life. It's still, you know, it's still many things. Like I was saying before, I was like learning to pretend a little bit so I can, let's say, participate in the world. And so, you know, we need to check all that stuff too. Like, what is it that doesn't let me be fully true to myself? And so it is a time for everyone, you know, it's not a time for just people very attached to the dream. It's for everyone, because this is new, you know.
yeah.
Well, here's another question for you is, as you said, you're going to be the first generation that's going to go through this all. So think back maybe 10 years ago and how people were having a conversation about where the jobs coming from or how's the environment going to be affected, or, you know, there was this sense of kind of doom and gloom that your generation would have been leaning into, you know, that we've polluted, you know, we've done all this stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So, do you see now, does it feel more positive to you in what's going on? Like, do you feel more, in a sense, almost empowered that you're going to be part of this transition and shift? Does it feel like I think you said, Emiliano, wow, it's almost like I kind of wanted this, but, you know, like this collapse. So are you feeling like you're leaning into this, wow, this is really shifting. We never thought it was going to happen this way, but we're really going to all come back into balance, and our generation is going to get to receive it.
Who wants to go?
In my case, I feeling very blessed actually, because like Jacqueline said, I'll never thought this will happen in my time, in my lifetime. And I had this experience while I was traveling in India. We got stuck because of the snowfall, and we were in a camping area for 5 days eating Maggi noodles every day. That's all we have, because we had no access to leave, or anybody can come to deliver any food. And I was so cold because I didn't have the proper clothes, and everything was a crisis. You know, it was literally a crisis, and we didn't know when this snowfall was going to stop. So we were just kind of stuck in the middle of nowhere with no communication, with Maggi soup every meal. And I've seen the other people around in the camping area panicking about. So every day they wake up, they gather, and they talk about, oh, how are we going to go out of this? What can we do to go through this situation? And it was nothing to do. It was literally nothing we can do on our own. So we just have to pray so the snow stops and we can leave the place. So while everybody was gathering every day, day after day, I stay in my tent and I share with the owners, with the local people, and I did my meditation. And I tried to be happy about whatever it was. Like, it was my first time in the snow. So I was super happy. Like, oh yeah, it's snowing every day. And people was freezing, mad, angry, whatever you can call it. And I was so happy because I've never been in the snow. And, you know, this is telling me it's the second time where I can prove myself how calm and how balanced I can be, and how much I can project that to the world and to the people around me. So every time I talk with my mom, or every time I talk to someone that is suffering about what's happening right now, I feel within myself that empowerment that you were talking about. I feel like, oh yeah, I have the tools, I've experienced it in my own life, and I know every crisis has an end. So I'm trusting that it's going to be like that, and I have faith. You know, I have faith also that we are going to a better place after this. And I don't know why I'm feeling this like contentment, because I do feel prepared and I do feel empowered, and I like to share that with the people that is suffering right now. So yeah.
That's really beautiful, because I think if everybody could find that contentment to trust the process, right? And to feel empowered, just allowing themselves to be themselves, and however that experience is, we give permission to love and accept everybody where they're at. And we really are co-creating something completely different. I'm the forever optimist, but are you guys forever like? Do you see it that way? That's what I really want to know. Evan does. So Evan, Victor thinks eventually.
Yeah, I think because I have seen it in my life. I mean, it's like for me, it's with going outside. It's a metaphor, an analogy for what I have gone through. And after years of working, of inner work, and having my dark times, like what's happening right now, yeah, I can say that. Yeah, you get to a point where you can actually be at peace. Observe what's going on without identifying yourself with it, and make changes. So yeah, I think it will happen. I mean, it will. Yeah.
Okay. And Evan, are you still feeling rubber band? Rubber band? I got a rubber band.
Well, honestly, I feel like if I do go back to work, it's like the least demanding job I could possibly have. It's like 5 minutes from my house. I'm literally just like mixing things with my hands or chopping things for like 5 hours a day. So I don't think that it's impossible that job will last forever, and I will have to transition from it, whether I go back or not. But
That was a big sigh.
Yeah, for me, it's interesting because for me, I did my inner work and all that, and I reach a point where I say, okay, I think uh, this is coming to an end. I'm starting to understand. I'm starting to kind of like having an idea of where all this goes. But there was this sense of like why I did that. Like it really being so philosophical sometimes it really made my life hard. It's like I wish many times I wish I didn't do that, and I was just automatically going with the world, and just making money, and living in the system and all that. But now that this happens, it's like, wow, now it made sense. I was preparing for this. It was not just rebellion against the system or against conditioning. It was really my God self saying it would be better if you go through all this right now, because I will need you in a way, and you will be a tool, a very important tool for when this that is happening now happens. And so for me, it's like I say, wow, I didn't know that I invested in the best currency I could have right now, that is being in peace with all this, and knowing that, I don't see for a long time in my life, I don't even see any more things like, oh, this is an accident or why this is happening. It's more like, okay, this is what should happen. It should be happening. There is a purpose for all this, and so I don't even think that this shouldn't be happening. It's more like, okay, this is happening and it's huge, and my position in this is actually very privileged because of all that dark night of the soul that I went through. So it's like I feel very, very grateful for that. Like I feel grateful that I did all that, and that for the last months or some years maybe, I say, wow, like I really maybe I took things too far. But right now it's like, no, it's now you have the fruits, of all this, and now is the time that I will be very probably very useful for a lot of things. Yeah.
Yeah, I would say that from all five, yeah. Okay, I'm seeing for all five of you have, are there to be the light for the other people. They're there to be able to affect those ones that are starting to question things, to say, you know what, I didn't go through this all at the same time as everybody else, but I went through my dark night of the soul, and I found freedom. Right? I found a new life, and I mean, that was the experience, the same thing that I had. It might have been a longer time in the chrysalis, like a longer time of the transformational process. However, it's like, whoa, when you confront it and you realize you have everything in here, you know, it really is your own experience and how you embody that. And we can do that conversation, just like we're doing here, just to let people have different perspectives so it can resonate with them. Then I feel it's like they're having like a reset. That's all that's happening, right? They're getting back in touch. And because it's on such a global scale, it can happen quickly, or more quickly than if it was happening like we were the little domino effect. It's like the dominoes, you know, that, you know, some of those ones have been really intricate. They started and it was like maybe they fell after the 10th, but now it's just like, and it's everywhere.
Yeah.
So what happens, I do believe there'll be, you know, innovation, creation, and many different ways, because I think each person is going to shift. And it's when each person shifts, they say, you know what, I don't want to go back to that job.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I as an owner realized maybe I needed to treat my people better.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I realized, whoa, I was more concerned about me than my neighbors. You know, all these thoughts come in that they've never been allowed to because they've been too busy to even hear them.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So I have another gentleman that wants to join you, and I'm going to bring him up, and you might recognize him. Have you seen this guy before?
Yes, I saw him 2 days ago. Yes.
Yes, Mr. Brian Chamberlain, and he was in Costa Rica 2 days ago, and this is part of one of the reasons that, you know, like I was saying, and I think you guys can expand on this, we're impacted by other people. So as much as we've had the experience and we can share where we're going, we're also need to recognize when other people's worry and fear impacts us, right? And keeping that all in balance. And you know, Brian, being the fact that you went down for this lovely vacation in Costa Rica, was that what happened for you?
Yeah, I talked to you a bit about that this morning, and I've been thinking about it throughout the day. It's really kind of a talk about trust and about governance in a way, in that we've found ourselves in a moment where the reality that we don't really have a global government, thank goodness, and we really only have local government and really localized decision making, you know, to the family unit and that sort of thing. What was interesting to me is that the leader of the province of Canada that I live in said on Thursday of last week, so 8-9 days ago, because we were coming into March break, so for all the kids, and he said, you know, things are okay, take your March break trip. Now that was the day after we had flown down to Costa Rica as a family, to have a March break for my daughter. So on Thursday, I believe it was, our premier said, take your trip. 2 days later, or possibly 3 days later, the leader of our country said, come home. And book the earliest possible flight home. Well, the leader of our country doesn't run the airline companies. So the earliest possible flight home is somewhat open to discussion, because I could have taken flights that flew from Costa Rica to the US to Canada. But we were in a time, and we're still in a time, where the rules were all changing day by day, hour by hour. So I could just see myself with my family landing in Houston, which would be the connecting airport, and not being able to get home from Houston and spending 2 weeks in Houston in Lord knows where. So I didn't want that. I wanted a direct flight, and the direct flights filled up basically instantly. And so I could have come home on a direct flight if I'd moved my entire family into business class. And, you know, I don't really have the financial means to do that. So decided that after much deliberation and much talking with the family and a lot of consensus building, we decided that it was best to stay down there. And so we decided that, I think, on Monday morning, might have been Tuesday morning. And we decided we'll do the best we can to enjoy the last couple of days down here anyway, because we're scheduled to come home Thursday night. And we did. We enjoyed ourselves to the best of our ability. But what was interesting was the social media impact, the number of people who would communicate with myself and my mother that, oh, you need to come home right away. What's the matter with you? Why are you still down there? And the social pressure for that, and the amount of worry. And it's like, well, I'm in a place where I'm literally around nobody other than my family. I'm in the middle of the jungle in Costa Rica. I'm not talking to anybody. When we do go out for dinner, we're practicing social distancing, and literally we're the only people in the restaurant. And I'm coming back to a country that has significantly more cases, and to a city that has significantly more cases than the entire country of Costa Rica. So why on earth, where is the sense in saying that I'm somehow have to come home to be safe? So it also comes down somewhat to trusting what information level are you willing to trust, and whose guidance and directives are you willing to follow. Mm-hmm. And you know, those kinds of decisions are now being challenged because we've got this term that I've heard called consensus reality, right? And to me, that the way that means is, what is the set of rules that we agree as human beings are actually true? And really what we're looking at is a shift in that set of rules, and a fairly sudden shift in that set of rules. So it is no longer true that we can go to a grocery store and line up right behind the person behind us and feel like we're safe to do that. It's no longer true that we can assume that everything that we're touching, whether it's been washed or not, doesn't matter, right? Anything that we touch potentially gives us this virus that we may or may not be able to defeat on our own. And so these changes in what's true, which are, we haven't changed our consensus, we've just got brand new information. And so the world is different, and we need to change the way we behave in that world because those parameters have all changed and those paradigms have all changed suddenly. And what I find is interesting is the way that that's pushing decision making to the local level. And so some communities are saying, well, we don't have an emergency. I mean, we don't have any cases within 200 kilometers of where we are. There are no cases. So why do we need to change our behaviors? Well, the moment you get one, you'll change your behaviors, right? Because of what's going on in the rest of the world. So a lot of these we're creating these local pockets. And whose decision do I follow? Do I follow the mayor of the city that I live in? Do I follow the leader of the province I live in? Or do I follow the leader of the country that I live in? And I think we're also in a time where people are now redefining what they consider to be home, because a lot of people will say, hey, I'm a global citizen, I can live anywhere. Well, not now.
Yes, I'm coming from Costa Rica. No.
Yeah, the country that you are a citizen of all of a sudden matters, because that's the only country you're allowed to travel to now. So.
You know, it's so funny to hear your story, because I traveled to Thailand in December, and I was there where all of this started. Maybe, no? It all started in China, but I'm in Asia. I'm way closer, and buses packed of Chinese people go to Thailand to the temples every single day. So I was there And people from Costa Rica was telling me the exact same thing I told you, Brian. It's like, why don't you come home? It's so dangerous in there. There were 0 cases in Costa Rica by that time. And I was in the same situation. I was like, I can just move my flight and try to leave earlier, or I can just do whatever I can. And so I got myself some masks, and I wear the masks, and I walk around trying not to touch anyone, and you know, something like that. Whatever you can do to make yourself clean every day. And I came back home, you know, and there were no quarantine when I got home. Like anybody could come right from China, and there were no quarantine whatsoever. So I came back home. I went through the United States, which is always packed, and is, you know, people is close to each other in the line making the visa thing, like super super close. And there is no rules there for travelers. Everybody was traveling normally, and I still have to go through Guatemala to Hong Kong, and the last stop was in Guatemala before coming to Costa Rica. So I went through actually 3 airports before coming back home, where all of this was happening. And as you experience on your own, you hear things that makes you feel scared, and you hear things that makes you doubt about your inner gut feeling. You know, my inner gut feeling is nothing is going to happen to me. I'm safe. I'm healthy. That's not a risk for me. And if that happens, you know, I can still find a solution. But that's what people facing nowadays. They watch the news and they get scared, and they try to make everybody else scared. You know, it's like what they told me, that the family choose you to be part of that. ¿Cómo es que se dice? Como para ser el clan.
Like your own tribe.
So it is the same thing. People is trying to make their own tribe, no matter what it costs. No matter if they drag you to the negative side. It doesn't matter if it drags you to the tension and the stress and the worry and the pessimism. It doesn't matter. You know, people just trying to push you that way. So I think that's the time where you really need to connect with your inner gut and your intuition, and said like, no, I'm gonna enjoy my last 2 days in Costa Rica because that's what I have, and I'm gonna follow my intuition, and I'm gonna fly the day I supposed to be flying on the first place, and that's what you did, and you are all safe now. You know?
Yeah, and I think the one thing I would say to that, Karen, is I don't think that the people were trying to make me scared. Like, I understand the way you said it, but I think it's more a case that people feel helpless, and they feel like they want to do something. And so if they can do something that reduces the chances of somebody they know getting it, they want to do it. Like, they don't want to scare that person necessarily. They just want to make sure that that person doesn't contract it at a time when they're uninformed. So I think we're all sort of in that helpless feeling about this, that there's so little that we can do. But I mean, in some ways there's lots that we can do, but we can't just suddenly, snap our fingers and have the virus die everywhere that it's currently living, or at least we don't know how to do that yet. Mm-hmm. So we have to live with it. And so there are limits to how much we can change about the world that's going on around us. So I don't think they were trying to scare me, I guess, is the bottom line. But it was interesting how you see how pervasive worry is with people that are tuned into essentially the mainstream media.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, like maybe a little more, 4 days ago, I unconsciously, let's say, I started the day with news. So the first thing I opened my eyes, and the first thing was going to my phone and see how is everything going. And then I continued from maybe 7 a.m. to 3 p.m., just really receiving a lot of information about this stuff. And some information is like unnecessarily dark, like they put people crying on TV and things like that. And okay. And so I was consuming all that. And like at 3 p.m., I was recording an audio to a friend, and I was shaking. Like my voice was cutting off. And I say, wow, this is amazing. I'm terrified right now.
Well,
It was very, very interesting because during that even time frame, I was even imitating some of the symptoms. I was coughing and things like that. And then I stopped. Like then I came back to my place. I closed my eyes. I, let's say, reconnected with the truth in myself. Let's say. And then I was just saying to Natsuko, it's very weird because when I'm not watching the news, it feels like I just turn off the movie of this whole situation, and it feels so unreal. And then I was able to walk around and not be scared about the air, and all reality was like I was afraid of all of reality when I was watching the news. Like I thought the virus was just coming through the door to me. And yesterday I watched like a video of a doctor. He's an amazing doctor. He's from Argentina, and he has a very good ability to teach like even kids about what is the virus really. And it was just so like this is the type of information that like was saying, yeah, fear is necessary right now, because if you don't fear it, you will not prevent it, and you will not take any caution. But he say, but becoming terrified is just something else. It's just not necessary right now, because even if the virus enters to your body, the percent, the let's say, the chances that you get actually affected by it, that's 20%. And he says, like, right now we have 17 cases by 1 million persons in the world. He say in December, when the regular flu start, we have 10,000 people by million. So this is the type of thing that you're saying. Yeah, like with this new information, the whole of our understanding of even our own bodies and immune system, like it's like, wow, I start to become aware how does that work, like it's not really. And even like me, like imitating the symptoms just because of fear, not because of any real, let's say, fact of that I have the thing.
Yeah, well, we've got a global focus on one topic that's unlike anything that I've ever witnessed in my life.
Yeah.
And this virus is the only thing that anybody's ever talking about. And what is interesting is I saw an interview, and the science of this may be way off, but I did see an interview that was a mainstream media interview with a scientist in France, and they were having a talk show about the lockdown in France and the lockdown of Paris. And what he said was, I mean, this is being done, as we all know, to flatten the curve and keep rates from going up. But he said the number of lives that are going to be saved from deaths from the virus because of this lockdown is lower than the number of lives that will be saved from the reduction of emissions. That we live in a time where the science about the virus is indisputable, right? Or at least it's undisputed. I mean, there may be a few people who say, oh, it's a hoax, it's just made up. But for the most part, all world leaders, all people believe that this is a real thing and it's really spreading. Where it came from, there may be some arguments about that, but it is really spreading and it is really affecting us. There's another great big monster in the room called global climate change, which for some reason we've accepted a world where the science of that is disputable.
Mm-hmm.
So because the science is disputable, then we don't do much about it, right? It really is interesting that this is the problem that we've been given, at a time when the solutions actually look quite similar in some ways.
Yeah.
You know, slow down, change the way the economy is mapping. Right? That's what the solutions look like for both of these problems.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would just like to.
But I think.
Sorry, I was just going to say, to me, that's like we wanted this environmental shift, and being here in Toronto the last few days, not hearing the cars on the road, not seeing the planes fly across the same way, you know, seeing nature. We were talking about this earlier. Nature coming back, the dolphins in the canals in Venice, the sky in China. You know, it's what we wanted in the sense of climate change. Let's be responsible for the environment. We just never anticipated that this is how it would occur.
Sure.
Like I found it very interesting. The other day I saw a documentary about origin of coronavirus, which is wet market in China. And usually virus comes from animals. They just don't come directly to the human. They need to hop certain animals. And why always happen in the wet market in China is because the wet market using maybe like 26 animals meat at the same time.
Yeah.
So there's snakes there, next whatever is, I don't know, like a turtle. Then on the top there's another animals. So it's so easy for the virus to hop and come to the human. And if we see, so people can say, why so they using so much wild animals? And it comes to the fact that in China, that's so much pleasure, like poverty going on. So people cannot reach the, like let's say factory made animals such as chickens or porks or cows. They can't. So that's why they really need to use those animals to survive. So for me, that was interesting. Where is this came from? This origin of virus is basically comes as that economic so much capitalism, so much pressure on a country such as China, try to push up being the factory for everybody, and that was kind of for me very symbolic. This sustainability of things.
Yeah, the reason is poverty at the end.
Yeah, and it's a third time this happened there, from the same wet market. So for me, it's like hidden message that universe is telling us like, hey, this is not working. Listen to us. Like something like that. I really feel that way.
Yeah, I heard it was a snake and a bat or something like that that caused this virus to mutate. And I guess so. What you're saying is that people are put in a spot where they need to eat snake meat and they need to eat bat meat in order to be able to keep up and survive.
Yeah.
And that's like darkness we try not to see.
Right.
People like want a commodity, like we want to be comfortable. So this just put all those darkness in other countries. Like let's admit, like everything we own, like clothes or everything is almost from China. And we're moving in a crazy speed. Like it's, for example, like Forever 21, they got like collapsed like last year, I think. The fast fashions and those kind of things. So it's like all connected for me. Like as Aaron say, that this rhythm of capitalism, that this speed cannot be sustained.
Yeah. Yeah, I think everything is connected, and there is a message from all the chain, the chain of events that has led to today, what's going on. I don't know. It's interesting because you have pointed that out, and I never thought of that, right? I've never analyzed the whole animal thing and what's going on in China. But now I'm thinking about who is analyzing this, who is observing all these things, because there is something for everyone. We're talking about poverty. We are talking about capitalism. We're talking about many things here. So I'm just thinking, okay, if we have if we have a mission on this, wouldn't it be interesting if we start just like putting this out, all these observations that are coming out from this, and spreading the word. Now that you mentioned that, I think it's interesting and important to make that or to bring that message out as well about where the virus came from,
Yeah, all of those topics fit into a category that we used to call sustainability, right? Creating an environmental and human and economically sustainable world. And really what Natsuko's pointing to with that analysis is that we were pushing up against the barriers, obviously, in China, right? We were saying we want low price of labor, and we want to be able to feed people, with food that is plentiful. And so we'll go eat whatever animals we happen to find, because we can't afford to feed them, in a proper and safe manner necessarily. And this is where the system kind of broke. And so that whole idea of putting things together in a sustainable way is, I think there's a lot of people working towards that. And every time that there's a change, whether it's this or whether it's 9/11 or whether it's, Hurricane Katrina, or you could pick anything throughout history, anytime that there's a change, there's a chance to remap things in at least a slightly different way, because people learn from that change, and it can lead to behavioral change as a result. And I wasn't answered my question, the 1 to 10 question that Jacqueline put out there, but I would tend to agree this is probably going to fall somewhere in the middle, in the sort of 4 to 6 kind of range. And a lot of people are going to change their behaviors on a permanent basis, regardless of what we shift back to and how much the world resumes to being, normal. A lot of people will change their behaviors as a result of this. And so it is going to change the world in a lot of ways.
Yeah. Sorry.
I was just going to say, the way it's going to change the world in a lot of ways is like, are we getting to the point of feeling like it's a wrap up, or do we have 3 points we want to share about how we can point people in the direction of what to look for as the world is changing, or experiences of your own to give them a heads up of how they're going to meet the dark night of the soul?
I think we've got a dark night of the soul as a collective group, as a collective world that we're going to go through. I think that the dark side of what we're going through right now, I think that this has also got the potential to shift us towards a lot of nationalism and a lot of racism. I think that you can see world leaders now, beginning to point fingers at each other and saying, this is your fault. And the national case for that is going to start to be made. Those efforts will be made. And I think that where we have democracy, we will hopefully, where we might have functioning democracy, hopefully, we will be presented with a choice as to whether we want to go insular and blame the rest of the world and bar ourselves from the rest of the world, or whether we're going to reject that argument and see ourselves as interconnected and all one at the end of the day, and be more open with each other. But I think, certainly this election cycle in the US is going to get pretty ugly, because I think that you're going to see Trump build a case that this wouldn't have happened if China were better under control. And so now is the time to go to war with China, or, if not physically, economically, in order to protect the United States. And I think it's an old argument. I think it's a tired argument. I don't think there's a lot of truth to it. That's my personal view. But I think the effort will be made, and that may very well be the choice that ends up getting made in November. Who knows?
Yeah. I think, like, this is like a yin yang situation, right? Like I think in the next months we will probably see maybe the biggest shadows or the darkest shadows of many things. I don't think there is a world leader that I would say, wow, he's a wise man that will react this way. I think there's too much in the game. And that's what I was saying before. Like, I think this transition will only be comfortable for people that doesn't have a lot of uh, emotional and economic, let's say, engagement with the world that is in this moment collapsing. Um, so I think I agree with Brian, and this is something that because sometimes I kind of like even try to create this false hope, like, or this false light about the situation. And I think in the long term it will be, but that's what I was saying before. In a generation like ours, whatever age we have, we are living the beginning of because yes, things have happened before, things have transitioned before, but this is too big to compare. We can talk right today about many diverse topics, and they're all under this huge umbrella of coronavirus and whatever is happening now. So
Yeah, and
I
I
think
think.
it,
Go ahead.
it will be huge, and it will be dark. And that's what I was saying before, like the analogy of, or the symbolic, the metaphor of entering to your house. It's enter to yourself, because it's time to prepare. It's time to really let go of things, that residues or stuff, or even people that have not started with letting go of stuff. This is the time, because in the next years, or even months, or I don't know, that's something of course I don't know, like a lot of things will trigger a lot of people, and a lot of things will be put in the face of many people. And so it is like I was saying, like this yin yang situation. Like, yeah, the world will be better, of course. I think that's the flow of life itself. It just looks for better ways, or it looks for this continued road to the truth. But
So
that doesn't mean that we cannot have like these temporary nightmares in between, like.
right.
So
I
yeah.
personally am going to need to head out fairly soon, but I just you gave me an opportunity, so I'm going to take it to open up that lens just a little bit. I think you're absolutely right that we're going to be challenged, that we don't see any wise men leaders, jumping to the forefront right now. So I would just say, keep your eyes open for a wise female leader to
Yeah.
jump. Yeah. Angela Merkel's been saying some pretty interesting things throughout this. We've got strong female leadership in New Zealand. We've got strong female leadership in Iceland, and others. And I think what we're going to see that isn't directly related to this, although the elevation of compassion as a requirement for leadership is likely to move us towards a better balance between masculine and feminine leadership traits. And I do think that the stage is well set for a big shift in the number of female leaders in the world and their importance. And I think we see that all over the place right now.
Can I put something out there that possibly the way we view government is also going to be restructured? So this idea that we technically need a leader,
right,
might also be something that would radically shift, because people are still been most of the time looking to someone else, just as you described. You had two different types of leadership, and who do you follow? You guys had to trust what you felt. And from my perspective, I feel like that's what this whole journey is it doesn't matter what the leader says. It doesn't matter what the head of my religion says. It doesn't matter what anybody else says. Because if I don't feel aligned with that, it's time to stand up for what I feel. That's the shift that I'm seeing, and that people are, as they, each of these well, you too, all had the power and all made the choice to make the shift for yourselves. And if everybody else decides to make that shift, if 1 billion people are healed from the inside out, and they say, you know what, we're just not doing it anymore. The purpose of what government was there for isn't going to be needed the same way, is it?
No, and I think that's also another analogy of these days is like everything depends if I go out of the house or not. Everything depends if I just rebel and make a party in my house, a private party. And so it's like people are starting to be confronted with this, like, now it's your responsibility. And it's very interesting, yeah, because right now what the governments are doing is pretty much imitating possible solutions, like that's why the measures in probably the whole American continent are very similar. People sometimes ask me in Instagram, like a lady, I don't know, from Croatia or something, like, how are things there? I guess they're not that bad. And I saw, no, it's pretty much the same everywhere. And it's very interesting because governments right now, they're just saying, okay, this is how the panorama is, let's say. But the most important thing is, please, it's your responsibility. It's not ours. We cannot force you. We cannot put a police in your door to tell you cannot go out. It's very much like this social responsibility, and that's very interesting because it's probably one of the first times that it's not like, oh, I will wait for the government to solve it. It's more like, wow, now what can I do?
Yeah. Take initiative.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So
Time to take action.
Yeah.
You already did with yoga.
Yeah.
6 p.m. Right?
Yeah. Actually, I also have to leave soon because I didn't have lunch yet. And before I go, I want to share with you a yoga class I did for a private group, but I don't care. I'm going to share with you. And I also made a Spotify playlist that you can play for the yoga class. So I'm sharing it in the chat for you now, so you can have it there handy. And what I was thinking while talking is that we can put together some information that we can throw out there about whatever we talked today, which is a lot actually. I don't know, making a video or writing or however we can do it, as a family. I think this is the time that we can share all of that experiences and all of that knowledge that we absorbed during these years. I think it's the perfect time to do it. So what do you think about?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely, yeah.
I could have this video transcribed if that makes anything easier for anybody, right? So then you'd know what you actually said.
Sounds great.
I have like 2 cups of coffee, so I need to pee. So I also.
Yes, thank you for being here. I think you shared a lot of very valuable points, and we're all going to look forward to moment experience.
So everybody go wash your hands now.
Yeah.
Mindfulness in washing your hands is one of those mindfulness, right? That's what Rachel was saying first thing. Little mindfulness.
Before everybody goes, I just wanted to share something very interesting. Like, I yesterday understood why the soap is so important and why it's even more important than gel alcohol. The reason is that the virus has this crown, like, and it has some spikes. And these spikes, how they work is like when they enter your body, the spikes kind of like they know where to enter. But with soap, though, you break those spikes, so they don't have the knowledge of where to enter. So that's very interesting. I don't know. I'm having a lot of fun researching about the scientific aspect.
You are.
The first time, yeah.
Well, I find it on the scientific interesting that it is coming into the lungs, okay? And hence the breath is what essentially gives us life or presence. So
Okay.
being conscious of our breathing.
Yeah.
Mwah. Namaste. Thank you for doing
All right.
Bye.
Thanks,
Thank
Jacqueline,
you.
for doing this.
Bye, guys. Thank you.
Yeah.